Ladies and gentlemen, we just had lunch, so I'm pretty sure that energy levels are not the problem. So, but I know that we've been sharing quite a lot during this conference for the last 2 days, and we're about to share some more. I know that our agenda promised you Angela Wamola, and in case you were wondering, I am not Angela Wamola. My name is Kamal Tamawa. I do work with Angela. I'm the director for Spectrums and Industry Services for Sub-Saharan Africa at the GSMA. And it's a pleasure to welcome you to this year's 5G Africa Summit, the second of its kind. We had the first session, the first edition last year. In the time that between when we had the first one and now, we've seen quite a lot of momentum grow around the development and deployment of 5G across Africa. As of today, 27 operators across 16 different countries and 16 markets have actually launched 5G services. There's also very clear evidence from our perspective that there's growth happening quite rapidly in terms of the deployment and the uptake of these services. South Africa, for example, as at the end of this month, apparently had about 40% 5G coverage, 5G population coverage, which I think is pretty impressive considering how, should I say early or how late the technology was deployed. And we're expecting to see a lot more of this rapid growth going into 2024 and 2025. So with all of this comes the expectation that we will find ways to use this technology to have a transformational a societal impact on our citizens, right? It's one thing to deploy the technology, it's another to actually extract value out of it and make it actually utilizable for change, for social change, true social change in our society. And this is why we need to continue to have these sorts of summits. We need to continue to have these conversations that help shape the narrative in terms of how we're able to utilize the technology for the maximum benefit of our societies. And with that, saying that, it's my pleasure to announce to you the launch of our 5G Africa report. Nowadays, we no longer do paper copies. We're in 2023. There's a QR code that has just come up on screen. And it basically is a report which helps us to show the latest trends and developments in terms of the 5G landscape globally, as well as in Africa, and also illustrate some of the data and statistics we're seeing from our colleagues in GSMA Intelligence in terms of the 5G growth and the outlook for the region. So please use the code, download a copy. You have some bedtime reading material for today. And also with the kids that we have nowadays, this could also serve as very good bedtime stories for them, with the way that they operate. And we're going to have a fantastic panel, which will also help to basically speak to some of the content that we have in that report, elaborate on some of the trends that we've seen, and also some of the developments in the 5G landscape in Africa and as well as globally. But before I call our speakers to the stage, I would first like to thank our sponsors, because without them, really, we wouldn't have this summit. Our platinum sponsor, Huawei, our gold sponsors, Qualcomm and Deticon, and also our silver sponsors, SES and Rohde & Schwartz. Please give them a round of applause for supporting this cause. Okay, so I'm sure you've heard enough of my rusty voice. So without further ado, I'm happy to call to stage our first speaker from one of the biggest 5G markets and one of the biggest mobile markets in Africa, Mr. Hassan Jabir, who is the Chief Operating Officer at MTN Nigeria. Hassan, round of applause for him, please, as he comes on stage.
Good afternoon, all. It's very difficult, I know, after lunch to listen, but hopefully I won't make it so boring for you to... I believe we are on a good trend in terms of 5G, so it is a good story and the potential of the 5G technology in Africa. Even though we started in September last year, we got the license in February, having 100 megahertz on the 3.5 frequency. We launched in September, but we are seeing really positive signals and positive signs that there is more potential to grow. But the most important is for us to apply the right strategy when it comes to 5G. How we did it in Nigeria so far. When we launched initially, not all the devices were ready in terms of operating system to give access to people, to give access to the people using whether Apple, Samsung, etc. To use the 5G technology. So there needs a lot of time in order for us to provide the services to the mobile technology. So how we started? We started first partnering with the devices manufacturer in order to allow accessibility to the people. We designed some financing also models to give them an easy to cross the entry barrier for the subscribers. But the most important thing in our strategy was to start initially with fixed wireless access. So the converge between fixed wireless access and mobile for us was a key in order to drive traffic when we launched the 5G. Fixed wireless access, the advantage, because when you start, you have limited coverage. So actually, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and the customer won't feel really the experience of 5G all over the network, or even where he move around. While fixed wireless access, he put it in his home, and if we have coverage, he will enjoy instantly the 5G speed, and he will get the advantage coming from that technology. So this was one of the key strategic thing. In addition to the branding, we used ATL, BTL in order to spread awareness about the advantages of that new technology. One of the key challenges, and you will see it later, is when you launch 5G, is the use cases. And we know all over the world people are struggling, and our companies are struggling with the use case, especially for the consumer. And in Africa, it becomes even a more difficult challenge to bypass. But that's why from day one, we started partnering with the OTTs in order to create the use cases, mainly the content, the gaming, the streaming services that will really use the 5G and allow the subscriber to benefit from the new technology we are providing. One advantage, one strategy for us was to use the 5G in order to offload 4G to 5G. Where we have congestion, where we have dense, it was a very good plan to have, is to put the 5G where there is high traffic, and this allowed the offload from 4G to 5G and help us get a faster return on investment for that technology. Key factors that the key factors that we use in order to expand the 5G network. We didn't just splash sites all over this place. So far, as of June last year, our population coverage is around 4%. But we see a big momentum in terms of traffic, even compared to other sister companies that launched 5G, even around Africa. So we put the sites where they are needed. So we were following the traffic trends, the density of the handsets, and also the density of the high 4G users. The other key factor was the convergence strategy. As I mentioned earlier, I don't need to repeat it, is to combine between the fixed and the mobile. This is key. Yes, you go with fixed wireless access, but it's not enough for you to generate the traffic, because it takes time for you to penetrate all the homes. And if you're gonna rely purely on fixed wireless access in order to get the traffic that will generate the revenue to cover your investment, it won't lead really to positive results. It will take time for you to start seeing the momentum, and we could see the challenges in other locations. And the other factors we leverage on our good network coverage and our brand equity. MTN Nigeria is the biggest network in Nigeria. We have the biggest market share. It's a very credible brand. So this also was one of the key factors that we leverage on in order to expand and promote the 5G. The main use cases so far in Nigeria, as I mentioned, it's around real-time video, high streaming, is around the gaming and the 5G fixed wireless access, but also what played a key role for us is the quad play on the 5G fixed wireless access. So we are selling the connectivity, but on top we are putting the content streaming video on top of with the connectivity. So we bundle it together, we converge it, and we sell it. That was the key. Still in the process, and it takes time. We believe that there are use cases around the private network because of the market and the industry that exists in Nigeria, whether oil, whether agriculture. So those will come, but usually private network, for you to close a deal, it takes a lot of time. But the return is good enough for us to justify the lead time it takes for us to onboard a private network. Augmented reality and virtual reality, you know, the challenge of the devices, they are still very expensive. So with time, we believe that it will play a role, but for now, the main use cases is what I explained earlier. Challenges. As I mentioned, one of the main challenges is the limited use cases. There are not enough use cases for the 5G, but we strongly believe with the strategy we are following in terms of 4G to 5G offloading, quad play, streaming, gaming, and this will help us get the momentum in terms of growth while the use cases are being developed. This will replicate the experience we had in 4G. When 4G came, you didn't have all the use cases that we are having today from the different OTT and that are playing a good role in driving the growth that we are seeing. So we believe with the 5G, it takes time, but the use cases will come, will be developed, and accordingly, applications in the future will need 5G in order for them to operate. The other challenge is the expensive network deployment. So that's why you need to be very smart where to put your capex, your sites. You cannot just spread and without really looking at the traffic pattern that based on the present traffic pattern that you have on your network. Limited device availability. Still, there are not enough devices available that use the 5G technology that are affordable for the people. Yes, we have a lot of fancy phones. I call them fancy, even though all of us have them, whether Apple, whether Samsung, but they are not accessible to the majority of our consumers. And that will be a challenge. And as I said, it will replicate what happened for the 4G. Also, the customer awareness. Not all the subscribers know the advantage of 5G. And so that's why it will need a lot of campaigns and communication campaigns to explain to the consumer what are the plus or the value added of having a 5G on your handset. But as I mentioned, we are seeing encouraging results. When you put your site where it should be, we already see 25% growth in usage. So when a subscriber moves from 4G to 5G, you can see an increase in his traffic per user around 25%. So far, in the places where we have 5G, 50% of enabled handsets hooked and latched to the 5G and are using the 5G. Also, I mean, the encouraging thing, when we put the sites in the right location, we are seeing that the traffic represents in that cluster more than 50% of data. So when you combine 4G and 5G in that specific cluster, 5G now today is in those locations is representing 50% of the total traffic, which is really significant. Going forward, and how we see that the success in Nigeria will be, we're gonna keep on deploying and investing in infrastructure, but as I said, in a smart way. We're gonna work with our partners in order to make the devices more affordable, drive public awareness around the technology. It's very important as an enabler, as mobile operator, as an enabler, and as a partner in the digital economy in the country to develop use cases with the local market, with the local players. And that will be a key in driving the 5G success in the future. Not to mention, sustainability is one of our key priorities as MTN. MTN, we emphasize a lot on the green and sustainable practices of the 5G. So what will happen in Nigeria, we see as well the benefit in Africa. We see that 5G will drive more digital inclusion, will drive economic growth, and it will support key infrastructure like healthcare and education. I made it right on time. Thank you.
And whilst Hassan was speaking, I noticed in the room a lot of people were furiously taking notes and taking pictures. So I suspect there's going to be a few more 5G networks as soon as we leave this room. People are going to be deploying. If you need any more details, that was free consultancy basically you got from him. If you want any more details and you need to speak to Hassan, come to me first, and we can arrange a price, and then I'll put you in touch. And that leads us on to the next presentation from the very insightful one that we just received. Now, obviously, it's impossible to deploy networks without equipment. It's one thing to just say you are connected to a mobile network, but when you think about it, there is actually physical infrastructure that exists behind that network connectivity. And I'm happy today to invite to the stage Mr. Lee Tao, who's president of Huawei Southern Africa Wireless Business. And as you know, Huawei is a major player in terms of providing the infrastructure that helps build these networks. So as Mr. Lee comes onto stage, please give him a round of applause. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here today. I'm really honored to introduce something about the 5G spectrum deployment strategy. I have some opinion I want to share with everyone. In fact, mobile connectivity is the most important thing. There is no doubt that about mobile connectivity play a key role for social economic. Investment $1, just like the left figure, we can see $1 investment will generate $5 of mobile income, and its contribution to the GDP has increased by at least 1% compared with the past few years. It's a core driving force for social and economical growth, and became more and more powerful. Let me sharing you latest case. It happened in China. China Mobile used 700 MHz plus 2.6G synergy for deployment of 1.4 million station sites. So it can serving 7.8 million agriculture product users. Bring the mobile broadband to the field. Just like the picture, a farmer is introduced their products such as dragon fruit in the field. driven by the high-speed mobile broadband. The high-definition video live had been increased by 5 times, just like the right picture. It also had brought 15.9 times traffic revenue to the operators. Meanwhile, let's also see the opportunities in Africa. Mobile brand has huge growth potential. Traffic will increase 15 times by 2013 year. 5G will grow rapidly, but 4G will account for 15%. 4G will dominate the entire mobile industry. Currently, let's see the picture. More than 78% of sub-Saharan users are still unable to connect to the broadband due to coverage, all kinds of reasons, such as economic capacity and so on, which further highlights the importance of 4G as a MWC fundamental network. The industries believe that, some friend told me yesterday, the sub-3G can generate the maximized value. It can enhance the 4G capacity and stimulate traffic by one band two usage. In Huawei, we limit one band two usage. How to use it? We can switch on the 4G benefit firstly, and one link evolution to 5G, right? Smoothly. So sub-3G will continue to enlarge 4G cache code of the legacy network and meet the needs of 5G requirements such as for VIP and new services. The world's leading large operators have chosen to sub-3G, like 2.3G and 2.6G, to do network deployment, such as China Mobile, China Telecom, South Africa, MTN, Orange, and so on. More and more operators choose them. So that's my question. Which band of the sub-3G is the key to unlock our Africa's potential? We believe that low frequency 700 MHz and 2.3G and 2.6G are the most critical. More than 82 countries around the world has aligned 700 MHz, but in our region, in the entire African continent, we only had 6 countries to deploy the 700 MHz. It's not too much. At the same time, you see, only 68% of countries in our region still not allotted 2.3 and 2.6G. So we have lots of work to do it. In addition, some countries, 27% countries still not choose FDD legacy. So I think all of this band, they have the ability to further stimulate more 4G traffic. Okay, let's see the 700 firstly. We have in Huawei, we have the leading the industry's products and solution, 4 and 4 MIMO technology. Just like the picture shows that we can enhance the coverage area compared with the traditional 1800 MHz. The coverage will be increased by 1 times. download through. Another picture we can see, after we deploying 700 low band, the 4G availability ratio will be increased at least 20%. So we think the 700 MHz is one of the most important bands for balance coverage and capacity in the future, especially we deploying the 4G and 5G synergy. Okay, let's see the 2.3 and 2.6G. We think it's a golden band. Best capacity, coverage, and mature ecosystem. Some guys may be worried about that the terminal penetration or the if the ecosystems are mature. I can tell you that it's mature, especially in sub-3G. The terminals is the penetration is the #1. Okay. In particular, I want to introduce the 2.6G's best capacity. If we deployed some massive MIMO technology, we can unleash at least 3 times or 5 times surprising traffic. For example, if one site can stimulate 400G, if the ARPU is 0.3 $, per GB, so we can stimulate at least 4 million per 1,000 sites. This is actual revenue in our network. Okay, just mentioned FWA. I like to introduce the business success. What happened in South Africa? 2 operators had chosen the sub-3G band to stimulate the traffic. Especially, we will import more and more entry CPE. Just like the picture, wireless home brand adoption are 2 times than the fibers. We will stimulate 4 times traffic than traditional solution. Okay, because my time are running out, so I don't want to introduce too much about the middle band 1.8G and 2.1G. In the lunar situation, we want to say that we have the leading solution. You just need to deploy one antenna, one RU, one BBU, without BBU. Depending on the microwave relay, we can deploy the low-cost solution for your situation. We can enlarge our population coverage rate. Okay, that's the finally I want to sharing for you. Sub-3G fully utilization in our region. Future for 5G FWA and 4G and 5G one band dual usages. We can continue to stimulate more traffic and balance the investment between 4G and 5G. We can get the 4G cash call firstly, then one link relation to 5G, maximize to protect our investment. Okay, and last, from the Huawei's perspective, I like to say 5G is in the future, but it's not too far. It happened around everywhere. So we can do more and more things to stimulate and promote the 5G industry, including terminals, devices, ecosystem, network, and business. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Insightful presentation there on particularly on the spectrum bands that are most useful for the deployment of 5G nowadays. So it's been two insightful presentations we've just heard. And also, we've mentioned to you that we've launched a report, which I hope everybody has managed to download now. You might not have gotten the chance to read it in great detail, but I'm pretty sure that the panel that is going to come on stage has gone through all of this material and know it from the front page to the back page. So without further ado, and as promised earlier on, I would like to introduce and invite Angela Wamola to the stage, who is going to moderate the next session. But from me, it's have a good afternoon and enjoy the discussion next on. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. So thank you so much, and I think let's get on with it and hear from the actual stakeholders who are doing the work and seeing what has emerged in terms of the conversation of 5G in Africa. And so I'd like you to welcome to the stage our distinguished panel speakers. Madam Frehiwot Tamru, CEO, Ethio Telecom. Mr. Philip Besimeria, the Managing Director of Vodacom Tanzania. And Judea Gasana, Enterprise Director of Airtel Rwanda. Welcome to the stage. So we want to understand, I mean, we've talked about, was Africa ready for 5G? Are we ready? Are we doing anything? The numbers might depict a sort of bleak future as to whether 5G will have any future in Africa in the near term. You've heard from the presenters just before us on terms of what they're doing in that space. So I'd like to hear from Frehiwot to start off. Tell us about your experience now rolling out 5G. You know, what can you draw as early insights in terms of the adoption of 5G among consumers and enterprises in your market? And do you see any similarities with other markets in terms of learning from what you're seeing so far?
Thank you, Angela. Good afternoon, everyone. 5G adoption in Ethiopia is at a very early stage. In fact, Ethio Telecom has launched pre-commercial in 2022 May, and just 1 month before we have commercialized in the capital city and in one of the major cities outside the capital city. So, to be honest, though it looks as Angela and some of my friends has said earlier, 5G is might be early for Africa, but the response from our customers was very, very impressive, both from the enterprise as well as from residential customers. Mainly, though we have a limited site, when I say limited site, more than 150 sites has been deployed in the capital city and in one of the major cities. And we do have quite few, less than 1% 5G enabled device. But the traffic from the early stage that we have observed, traffic has increased for the 5G sites by 90.8% compared to those sites which are only 4G or advanced 4G. So the traffic is really amazing, as my friend from MTN and others has mentioned. I don't know how to explain even this, because we were not expecting this much traffic increase in just a very short period. So further, we need to look into the use cases, as you mentioned. It looks absolutely the same, the challenge, as well as the even the journey of the adoption. One of the challenge for maybe for the adoption is 5G enabled devices very limited, very limited. We do have 73 million subscribers, but 5G-enabled devices are less than 1 million. And yet, the traffic from that limited 5G-enabled devices is really amazing. So we need to be very careful on the investment. We may not be aggressive to roll out everywhere. We need to be very strategic and select areas and look for really good use cases that can really make sense, not only for the operator, but also for the customers. And 5G rollouts, it really requires collaboration of stakeholders, particularly enterprise, so that we can find use cases that will make sense for them as well, not only for us. But from the residential and from the mass, enhancing mobile broadband is one of the areas I think we can address through 5G. And what we have observed from the early stage is offloading 4G traffic where it is highly congested really was enough to invest, And also for fixed wireless access, it can also bridge in some cases where there is no enough broadband infrastructure. I think that's also was enough, and it will really make sense and will bridge the digital divide, especially for enterprise customers where we are not able to provide high bandwidth through our broadband infrastructure. So at early stage, it's really impressive, and from the customers we have done also social engineering and assessment feedback as well. Customers are happy, but we need to do a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe just to add on that, the perspective, let's say from now, Philip, we talked about 5G adoption, when you look at from a rollout perspective, but also from an adoption perspective, what's your experience, and are you seeing any barriers towards that continuous adoption or rollout from your perspective?
Thanks. Thanks, Angela. I think interestingly, when you listen to what Freo just spoke about, what Hassan had speak about earlier on, plus the conversations in some other rooms, it would seem like we all are coming probably from the same conference or same strategy room or same boardroom, because the challenges are similar in most of our markets. I think, without belaboring the point, all the challenges that Hassan highlighted are common to us as well. Infrastructure is expensive. And because of the densification that's required with 5G, you're going to have to invest quite a lot to get the right, consistent service in any area you go to. The second area, obviously, the device ecosystem. Yes, it's growing probably faster than one would had previously anticipated, but they're still limited devices. They are still pricey. Whether you're talking about devices for consumer use or even, terminals for the home, you're still seeing terminals, 5G routers. Yes, you can get those below, below $300, but the quality may be a bit iffy. But if you want quality terminals, these are $500 plus. So terminals are still an issue. I think the other issue that we've grappled with in our space has also been use cases. Most of the initial usage has been, for individual use, but also with services that overlaid. So we're seeing a lot of streaming. It was actually interesting when both what Friot and Hassan said, you're talking about 98% growth. We've actually seen almost 200% growth in some areas in terms of data. And what's been interesting, we've been trying to track mobile 4G data users in the household when they were just using their device. And when we put an FWA terminal in that same house, we just saw data usage explode almost 200-fold. We've got households that are using 80 gig, 100 gig, when at an individual level, they were probably using 2.5, 3 gig. So, and when you look at what's behind it, you know, a lot of streaming, gaming, yes, some of it goes into office applications, but it would appear that the initial use has been for sort of this entertainment, content-like services. The other thing is obviously, if you don't have the right spectrum, you're going to grapple with the right, having the right deployment. So we were fortunate that last year in September, we had an auction, spectrum auction in Tanzania, and we've managed to get, I think, all the relevant spectrum that even the colleague from Huawei was referring to. That's very important to get below the 3 gig sort of spectrum level. And then when I expand, I think beyond that, the other thing is to be able to find enterprise and government use cases, because yes, you can do FWA, which really serves for last mile, but what we found that where we've gone into, so we have a use case, for example, in Tanzania in one of the mines. We are talking to, we have a trial with a utility company where we're deploying IoT and smart meters and monitoring of some of the infrastructure remotely. And we find that that's where scale is likely to come from in the short term, and that's where we're putting a lot of focus. So I think the challenges for us sound similar to what everyone else is talking about. I think it's how then you, how do you solution and work around these common challenges in the industry?
And I think this point is very critical for us to understand here in the room, particularly as policymakers, in trying to unlock the challenges. As you say, they're common. It's like you're all sitting in the same boardroom. And so the question is, let's understand that, number one, you know, traditionally the network that we have been sort of, the model that we have had previously before was always two-sided of just consumer, you know, supply and demand. So you had, you know, you guys were the, you know, the Uber model. You were the ones who were providing the network, and on the other side you had the consumers. But that has evolved since 3G into a multi sort of model, a multi-stakeholder model that has, it's not just your traditional, you know, consumer on that side. You've had, you know, other people who we normally term as sort of large traffic originators who are part of the supply, who are part of the demand side. Yeah. And I think they've done a very good job in Africa in helping us sort of create that demand for services. But I think, as you've mentioned, the challenge is when you come to, when you know, the service requires densification, and densification requires CapEx. And CapEx requires a return of capital employed, which is a factor of demand. And then demand requires devices, and then devices are not available. I mean, if you look at it even just today, out of the 25% of the population, representing about 290 million of our people who are using mobile internet, only 17% are using a smartphone. The other 5% are using a smart feature phone. And then out of that 17% who are using a smartphone, 69% are on 3G and 31% are on 4G. So you see that sort of multiplication effect. At what point in time will they even afford, therefore, a 5G phone? And in Africa in particular, they say the average of the cost of the lowest entry internet-enabled phone, which I think therefore is a smart feature phone, costs 30% of your monthly income. Yeah. So you see what sort of situation we're grappling with as a continent, right? We really need to unlock how we can continue investing in the future of 5G and not giving up and saying we're done, simply because we understand the barriers. As you've said, each and everyone has articulated those same barriers of rollout and adoption. So I'd like to then look at what else can we do, and this is where I'd like to ask Jide a question on how do we expand that pie in terms of attracting enterprises, in terms of the use cases that have really stood out for you in your quest to see where the new opportunities in the future lie, even as we try to resolve for the consumer model in terms of the devices to consume, because there is something that we can continue to do as operators in terms of building the demand, even as we wait for the ecosystem here in the room to help us sort out the consumer model side.
Thank you, Angela. I would like to mention that Airtel, being a smartphone network as its brand, we've kind of maybe a bit tackled that problem, especially for enterprises, because when you're talking to enterprises, they can commit a certain amount of revenue on a monthly basis. So right from the onset, when we entered the market, we came with bundled smartphones for the corporates and even SMEs. So that I think it was a success story for us, because if all the employees in a certain account are able to hold a smartphone, right from the monthly commitment of between 5,000 and 10,000, if we can get a smartphone, an entry level. So the issue for us has been to, get a return on that investment. So the lowest entry smartphone was costing us about $50. So that was not affordable to give to someone loading 5,000 per month, $5 per month. So with this new initiative that we launched, I think 2 days ago, we came together as a partnership with the government of Rwanda in its Connect Rwanda 2.0, and also the Netflix founder, Reed Hastings. We're able to avail entry-level smartphones with desired features at just slightly at $18, and that also comes with unlimited calls to all networks and internet. So that is a case that we can apply if we partner as stakeholders, as government with its influence, as also investors, as telecoms, in terms of leveraging on the network to also include to get inclusiveness among the low-income population and those that do not really see the need for a smartphone, because a smartphone has become an office for most people. You can do your transactions, high-value transactions, financial, personal financing, e-learning, a lot of use cases that we have seen. So that needs to be brought down to the individual at grassroots level, and we've seen the government and also telecoms play a key role in that. So if you go to the use cases of, for example, healthcare, it should be a basic utility that you're providing on the smartphone. So then the end user sees, the convenience of not lining up at the hospital. I'm talking about rural scenarios. So when we get at least, the 80% that give us the 20% of the revenues latched onto a smartphone, an entry-level one, then even they start using 3G, 4G, and also get to a level where they appreciate the lower latencies and speeds that can be offered by 5G, as also content providers bring more solutions that can address the needs of the, of the public.
So I'll pause here now, and I think I'd like to involve you, the audience, a little bit more in this conversation. Do you think there's more that they can do before we ask policymakers what more they can do as well? Any hands out there to see if there's a question on what more do you think they could do or could continue doing or could have done to really unlock this potential that we're saying exists? Yeah, how can we increase productivity in, whether it's at the SME level all the way up to enterprises, and what can they do to increase that adoption rate. Do you have any questions from the audience before we pose the question back to them? If you have a question, please introduce yourself first, and then we'll take 2 questions.
Thank you. I'm Hechi from Uganda. Thank you. I'm Hechi from Uganda. The panelists mentioned some of the initiatives they are putting in place. I just wanted to know, of course, we've been talking about affordability and access and all. I come from Uganda, and they've launched 5G. But you don't see different packages, subscription packages for the different networks. If you use the same subscription packages for 4G, for example, and 5G, you utilize your data in less than a minute or 2. You've mentioned increase in traffic, meaning that people are using more data than they were using on the previous networks. So I just wanted to know from the panelists what they are doing in that space. Thank you.
Okay. Is there another question before they answer them? No? Okay. Would anyone like to take that?
Yeah, sure, I can start. So that's another area that will continue to evolve. Let me call it smart pricing, because you're really talking about customers that are consuming data at a very high level for whatever they are consuming it for. One of the things I have seen, for example, in mainly in the US and Europe around 5G pricing, because I think they're a lot more advanced, including Asian countries. They are quite ahead with their deployments on 5G, has been this whole concept of use more, you pay more, but you also get more kind of thing. Not get more, pay less, but you pay more, but you get more. And you find that kind of pricing is very restricted to, let's say, 5G packages. But that works also when you've got ubiquitous coverage. I think given where we are, I mean, Freud said 100+ sites, we just short of 300 sites. It's very difficult at this stage to really industrialize it and go to the scale or levels that you're speaking about. So as we get, it's a continuous process. As we get more insights in terms of what you're using the data for and what our capabilities are, I think you will find that packaging, pricing, all of these things will also continue to evolve to suit the needs of users like yourself.
So then we'll pose the question now back to the policymakers. What do you think policymakers and regulators can do to support as increase the pie when you're looking at this multi-model of demand and supply that just goes beyond the consumer as was traditionally? I think policymakers and regulators are not saying that they cannot help us, but I think we're all trying to understand this new business models that need to emerge and what role they can play. Frehi, what is there?
Thank you. Maybe I would like to emphasize on 5G is not like 3G or 4G that we're going to leave it only for operators. It's a multi-stakeholders, I think, assignments if we really want to accelerate economic growth for the benefit of all of us, right? So that includes the government, policymakers, regulators. So we're not going to leave the expansion and deployment of 5G, as you all know. It requires significant investment on the capex, as well as because of its nature also, its intense coverage is required. So operators cannot do this alone, and at the same time looking for meaningful use cases. So if we take like government, we can, again, we're talking about accelerating economic growth, right? If we take mining usually happens in the rural areas where there is no infrastructure in most cases, right? But at the same time, this is one of the resources that we need to leverage so as to address economic growth and alleviate poverty. If that is the case, we need to put our hands to use 5G and craft together tailored 5G use cases so as to help the mining industry explore more and bring, create wealth for all of us, right? So if we can collaborate and create a tailored solution in collaboration with policymakers and government and enterprise, I think we can address specific enterprises or specific industry, the verticals. We cannot deploy 5G across the board at once. I don't think it's going to give meaning, or return on investment is going to be compromised. So we need to evolve while selecting carefully, prioritizing our priorities as resources are limited, and a different market has also different challenges. For the residential, I would like to address also the question that you, I think, raised earlier about the tariff. When we talk about the mass market, usually because of our tariff, they're afraid of trying new technology. And in our market, for instance, people were afraid to try 4G when we launched 4G because they assumed that it's going to be damn expensive. So our experience when we launched 5G, we have done the tariff the same, so as people can try, and later on we are packaging a different model for 5G users. So we can evolve gradually while also helping consumers to use how to utilize 5G for their own personal case as well. Thank you.
Is there a response from the audience in terms of a question to them in terms of that? What more can be done? Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maurice Prince Michael. I'm a tourism expert, and my question is, I have actually two questions. I heard the first presenter, Mr. Hassan, present about the infrastructure for 5G, but it's not only, for example, like in Rwanda, where internet is expensive. I live here, we are using 4G, so I don't know what will happen like in the future for the infrastructure for 5G here. And even the mobile cells that we use today, most of them are using 4G. So the infrastructure part, maybe all the people who manufacture mobile phones, either Apple, either Samsung, I don't know, maybe they also need to study their markets well, so that when they produce those cell phones for every, let's say, the African market, that the quality they use in their countries is also matches the same quality. If it's 5G, it has to come with the phone, so that it is, I don't know, maybe they will deal with the pricing, but it has to be affordable, especially for Africa. East Africa itself, I know they have so many challenges for using internet, maybe fiber optics. Now you're having satellite innovations. So I think they need to study that part well, so that we can be able to know what is it that we're going to consume. The second is, today, like, I've lived in Rwanda for 10 years, but I've also worked in Kampala, Tanzania, and Kenya. In education, for example, schools, I remember like in COVID, it was very, very difficult for people to study at home. Hello? Yes, because of connectivity. So, is 5G going to tackle all the sectors in the education system so that the learning can be easy and also doing business? So I have a very big question about 5G in terms of all sectors to use, especially education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. GT, would you like to take that one in terms of expanding beyond the traditional applications of what we do?
Yes, I think we should, as I mentioned earlier, it's key players that need to come together, not telecoms working on products in silos with handset vendors doing their own features of what they expect customers to like, and also the cost being something very different from the pricing. So we find that the telecom is bearing all, the whole burden of the cost, and the handset vendor will not, go into a risk of waiting for, future payment unless a bank is involved, which will also increase the price of the handset. So all players need to come together to define the features that are required and also the minimum cost that will give us the pricing that customers, for example, in our markets expect. When it comes to the experience, he mentioned about learning or even remote working during the pandemic. I would say the pandemic did not prepare us, but we've learned some lessons whereby, like for example, on 5G, we are committing 10 times better speeds, 10 times lower latency, and also, the density he spoke about, which will enable applications that are very sensitive, like connected cars. So if we can go to that level, then e-learning is, which has been working well with 4G, then on 5G it becomes enhanced. So in terms of quality of service, there is no doubt 5G comes with its own, standard. And we see that more users are actually demanding better coverage, not just population coverage, but also indoor hotspots and the standard itself of 5G. So for us as telecoms, we are more worried about how to meet our costs than the quality, because 5G itself gives a standard quality.
So I think that there's a lot to discuss, but I believe the objective of having this discussion was to just share some insights so that we can continue the conversations with our distinguished panelists here in the room, and together with anybody here who's in the room who's interested in understanding that problem, because we as Africa will not be left behind in terms of technology evolution. We will have to work amongst ourselves to figure out how to grow the pie, how to approach the challenges that they have mentioned, and I think it might inform how we can go about reviewing or looking at the policies that exist to be able to encourage other stakeholders to be part of that solution of that problem. So I think we won't stop here. I mean, we've run out of time, but I believe that the outlook for 5G is still very possible for us.
Let me add.
Yes.
For the last question, let me add maybe.
And Frehi, what would like to summarize and close out?
No, to summarize, to close, but I just would like to give a hope for my brother who asked a question, the last question, right? In Ethiopia, we have already deployed smart education. I think you've been concerned about education. That was one of your concern. So it's practical. It's something that we can make it practical. We have deployed more than 200 smart education, smart school, in collaboration with our strategic partner, technology solution provider. That's why I said earlier, multi-stakeholders. We need to engage multi-stakeholders, the government, Ministry of Education, university, and Huawei, our partner, is working together with us, and it's really promising. Already universities are now very much interested to roll out, and also smart agriculture. We make it happen in Ethiopia, so we have a hope in Africa as well to monetize 5G and latest technology. But we need to be we need to have a clear strategy and vision and prioritize select areas, because we have, again, limited resource. That's why earlier I mentioned also on the investment requirement, right? So, but it's possible to make it happen.
And that's, I think, what you are saying, that in Africa, it's not an issue of finding the investment. I think it's about making sure that whatever sector that you want to smart tourism, smart manufacturing, smart education, whatever it is, how can we work together to be able to create those solutions so that whatever capital is injected by all these stakeholders, we make sure that there is a return of capital to be able to continue investing in the future of Africa. So we open up this discussion further with you here to make sure that we can have that outlook really cemented in the way that we can work together with these partners in the operations that they have deployed everywhere across the continent. And next year, same time and same place, let us now start discussing what impact are we seeing in those areas. As we open up to the next session, I'd like to invite Kenichi up to the stage as we go down, and I'd like you all to thank our panelists for their contribution today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Angela, and thank you very much to our panelists. We're just getting started. There's a whole lot more to come. Angela made a good point as she was wrapping up the previous session. How do we go about digitizing different sectors of the economy, smart tourism, smart education, smart mining, and all of it. And I can tell you that in our third session, you don't want to miss that session. We're going to be talking about 5G innovation in Africa, and we have two fantastic speakers from Qualcomm and Orange who will be discussing with us great innovative solutions that they're already deploying and testing across Africa. But before we get to that session, we are now about to start our second session here in the 5G Summit, and it's about enterprises. As has been said previously, the importance of the enterprise segment of 5G, it simply can't be overemphasized in Africa. And so we have a great lineup of speakers who will be talking with us today. And it's my pleasure, to welcome to the stage our first speaker to give his keynote, Mr. Jocelyn Karakula, who is the Chief Technology and Information Officer at Orange MEA. So let's give him a round of applause as he comes up.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be with you today. First of all, I must say that Orange Middle East and Africa is supporting and committed in 5G introduction and deployment in countries where we operate, starting with two success stories, one in Botswana last year, Jordan this year, next to come in 2024, so very, let's say, very positive results and as a start. First of all, I think in this room we all know the benefits expected from these new technologies. When I say new technologies, 5G, but mostly 5G SA. First of all, enhance throughput, enhance connectivity, data. Second thing is the massive IoT capabilities, very important for some, let's say, enterprise models and enterprise services. Low, and I should say very low latency, which is crucial for real-time applications. And last but not least, differentiated and committed quality of service. Based on the slicing capabilities, whether static or dynamic slicing, but not entering into this type of details. I'm sorry, I will probably rephrase some of the words that has been done, but it's very important to have this. I wanted to share with you some consolidation seen from a telco operator as Orange when it comes to 5G for enterprises. First of all, 5G, and it was already mentioned, is first, it's a double challenge. It's an investment challenge. Implementing 5G is huge in terms of its investment, starting from the price of the license and the spectrum, not forget that, and for the network transformation, not only RAN network, but code network, IT, billing, OSS, etc., etc. So this is, first challenge is based on investment, but on top of that, for a telco operator, implementing 5G SA massively implies that we change our operating model. And this type of project is a huge investment, and we have to decide exactly at what pace we are going to go through 5G SA massively. So this is very important to us. And what we have built is a strategy onto four pillars, let's say, when it comes to 5G and 5G SA. Is first, very high performance network, advanced services, intelligent network and flexible networks, sometimes self-designed networks, and of course all that with sober energy consumption, which is something we have to do and for Africa. So I wanted to share some consideration about how this 5G SA, seen from us in the telco perspective, can serve the development of verticals, meaning industry. First of all, what we observe is that when we mention verticals, it is very various vertical. I mean, it comes from mining, that has been already mentioned. It can be media, can be transportation and logistics, port industries, can be education, can be health, many things with very different demands. First of all, what we realize, because we, as all of you, I think, have started actively to investigate what are the expectations of these verticals, we have a strong feeling that all these players, all these actors of economy in Africa does not have the same understanding and maturity when it comes to understand what are the benefits of such 5G SA technology. Coming back to the mining experience and mining example, which is very meaningful for Africa, what we observe is that mining companies already have, for most of them, the knowledge of what technology can bring, but they are limited in usage of technology because, as it was said, because of being in rural areas, because of being stuck to very legacy technologies. And all that is a very good background for us telcos, but not only telcos, I will explain why, to propose how 5G SA can uplift the performance, their business, and that the very solid background these mining companies may have will facilitate the adoption of 5G SA. What is very important for that, to us, is to be very pragmatic. On a telco perspective, there is no means, there is no necessity to upgrade our network to 5G SA right now for only mining companies. But being pragmatic means that we have to build an ecosystem. I heard the multi-stakeholder ecosystem, which is very meaningful, with our suppliers, vendors, service vendors, equipment vendors, integrators, etc., and with very adapted and, let's say, scalable equipment and scalable systems, we can address, for a mining company, a project of improving their performance, the way they monitor their industry and the way they control their systems. On this type of case, it's not a big bang that is to be proposed to mining company, it's a way that a smooth uplift and the way to understand for them very rapidly how they can improve all their performance and all their business. I think the mobile private networks makes much sense in this type of approach, and we are very confident that this type of partnership, as I said, between vendors, vendors and integrators will be very fruitful. And this is emphasized by the fact that these vendors, these partners, let's say, may have such similar experience of 5G SA scalability in mining companies elsewhere in the world. On the other hand, we are convinced that when it comes to other, let's say, verticals, there is probably energy to be spent on our side to explain what the technology can bring to the business. And as I said, the business can be very various. If I take an example, taking that into consideration, I take an example of what we have started to deploy in Orange. It's called 5G Labs. I think it will be elaborated much in detail afterwards. 5G Lab is something that we built as kind of showroom in order to demonstrate very specific use cases, addressing port industry, addressing mining, addressing telemedicine. Last year, in this Mobile World Congress Kigali, we were very happy to host in our booth a startup coming from Senegal proposing a first telemedicine case. It was very interesting because it was not a pure 5G use case, but we feel that developing this type of case with appropriate young developers and startup will be very easy to turn to 5G when 5G will be required. But first, it's the first step of this is to educate and to get the possibility of those developers or these startups, innovators, to understand what 5G facilities mean for the business development. And this is very important. If we want to go through vertical, we have to educate and we have to provide all the information regarding technology benefit I just mentioned before. So this is very important to us. Third consideration is that in our landscape, technological landscape, 5G SA does not come alone. It comes at the same time as advanced cloud capabilities, and it comes at the same time as AI. We are talking about generative AI at every corner, but AI first. Meaning that we have not to propose only 5G SA, we have to consider 5G SA in the middle of the global and improving ecosystem, which can promote and which can enhance very advanced use case. And it's clear that if we do not have all this ecosystem in our mind, we shall be very limited in promoting 5G SA and 5G. We have, in these advanced services, we have in mind, for instance, the way some companies can build the value proposal in building, for instance, digital twins for elaborating in labs, whatever, etc., hologram, whatever. This is huge data consuming, and huge data consuming makes the usage of cloud and the usage of AI obvious for this type of companies. We have to make it simple for them. So I think it requires work, because as much simple we want to get our proposal for 5G SA, it is very complex to build such simple offers. So we have to facilitate facing this huge challenge that can be a little bit scary, because we are entering into a very, let's say, very complex world, trying to match every technology between cloud, between AI, data, 5G, etc. So this is very important that we have this in mind, and that we provide the appropriate not only knowledge but facilitation to our developers in order to accommodate and to get the best benefit of all these technologies. This is our huge feeling. My last consideration is that for Africa, you know, 5G SA story has been first an Asian story. It was totally incredible, the number of 5G SA launch in Asia, if you look at the June of this year statistics compared to other parts of the world. Because there is appetite for technology and there is appetite for digital transformation, and it is very rapid. In Africa, I think it will be, we have to select the appropriate pace. It was mentioned, the very, very tricky financial equation about implementing these new technologies. I remember 4G coming. 4G was exactly the same, but 5G is the same multiplied by 10, because 5G accommodates with other technologies as well. So we have to facilitate and we have to select the appropriate pace. As a CTIO, I must say that it's not only a question of how I will transform my network. This is one very valid question. But it's when. What will be the decision maker for moving from 5G NSA to 5G SA, for instance? It's not an obvious answer. Is it the first use case I want to develop with such a vertical or such enterprise? Is it something different? So this is very important to us to answer this question, and there is no one single answer to that. And I'm convinced that going at the right pace, moderating as much as we can our investment and our spend, will provide the appropriate accelerator for digital transformation for all verticals. I mentioned the telemedicine, but I don't want to elaborate much, because I think there will be an intervention about healthcare. But we saw last year the benefit when launching in Botswana the 5G. It was 5G NSA, but there was a use case proposed to the president of, His Excellency President of Botswana, a use case of medicine as well, meaning how to make a real-time diagnosis when an injured person is transporting to the hospital in order to save time and prepare the surgery room, etc. This was developed by a startup. I don't remember exactly which country this startup came from, but we have a multitude of use cases, and if we do that properly, the appropriate technology will be present for serving this digitalization. So I'm sure that on the verticals, we shall do much more than we are used to do today, but it will take time, and we have, us as a telco, a big role to play in educating, in promoting and facilitating the access to all these technologies. Thank you very much. This is consideration I wanted to share with you, and open to questions, of course.
Thank you very much, Jocelyn. He's still around, so, of course, I'm sure there are people who will want to engage with him on some of the points that he highlighted. And interestingly, he mentioned health a few times, the telemedicine project in Senegal, and also, the health use case in Botswana. And our second keynote speaker for this session is someone I'm sure many of you would have met, or if you haven't met him already, you will definitely want to meet him before this conference is over. He's very passionate about the role of 5G and connectivity more broadly in digitalizing healthcare in Africa. And it's my pleasure at this time to welcome to the stage John Philbert Nsegimana, who is the Chief Digital Advisor at Africa CDC. Let's give him a hand as he comes up.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A great pleasure to be here today to talk to you about the potential of 5G. As I was thinking about what's appropriate to share this afternoon, a story came to my mind. I remember a good evening, we're having good bread and good wine in Brussels with our friends from the European Union. I was part of Smart Africa delegation. We're forging a partnership between Africa and Europe about connecting the continent. And then a very good gentleman, one of the partners from the European side, I think was coming from the banking industry, he said, we're talking about different technologies that need investment, the investment opportunities that connecting the continent of Africa brings. And then he said, why do you need 3G in Africa? Why do you need 4G? Why do you need 5G? Why don't you just complete the rollout of 2G and stay there for the next 10 years? And then we can start thinking about 3G and 4G. I couldn't resist the urge to interject at that particular moment because that reinforced the narrative that Africa should always be lagging behind the rest of the world when it comes to new technology. And the conversation was happening 5 years exactly after Rwanda had launched the 4G network. And by that time, we had over 90% population coverage in this country. So the memory came, and then as I listened to the other speakers, I think the key question here is what are the use cases? And I want to tell you that the health sector, from which perspective I'm speaking this afternoon, has numerous use cases that are just waiting for this capability to be available to everyone. For those who followed the news, just last week in this country, Rwanda, His Excellency President Paul Kagame was opening a new hospital that focuses on minimally invasive surgery and using telemedicine. So you've got doctors in Paris and New York operating in a minimally invasive fashion on patients located here in Rwanda. And those are the kind of use cases that Africa needs to develop, multiply, and grow, and make this case of 5G investments for the industry to make. I also realize that this is also a moment that calls for us to collaborate more. And when it comes to collaboration, I'm very glad to say that Africa CDC and GSMA have been walking the talk. For over, I think, 8 months, we collaborated. The Director General of Africa CDC visited Barcelona. An MOU was signed with GSMA with precisely the intent of bringing the healthcare sector as one of the key verticals that this industry should take seriously. It started with a complaint from me that it looks like the industry cares more about our money than our lives. Because mobile money, fintech, is what was right, left, and center in all conversations. And we realized that, okay, part of it is to challenge the industry, but also part of it is for us as the sector, the health sector, to create those use cases that demonstrate that justify the investment. But for that, those use cases are not going to come from us only, because we may not understand the capabilities of technology the same way you understand it, but also they will not come from you because you don't understand the health, the public health sector the same way we understand it. So the only way we can do this is by collaborating, talking to each other, and joining hands and forces and minds and create those use cases and business opportunities. So this is why, as you saw yesterday from the opening and everywhere you go in this good venue, you realize that Africa CDC and the African Union is a co-host of this MWC Kigali Summit, and we signed an agreement to work together for the next 3 years, and we hope that by that time, if there are any skeptics who still doubt that healthcare is a very strong vertical for the telecom to tap into, those doubts will have vanished. And we are here to deliver on that promise. Finally, I would like to invite the telecom industry to also join us in our convenings, because MWC is considered as the prime technology sector convening, and we've come to you as the health sector. But also we have our own convenings. In Zambia next month, there is going to be the Conference on Public Health in Africa. I personally lead the track on digitalization. So we also want to invite our partners of the telecommunications sector and technology sector to join us so that we can continue that conversation and that dialogue that is going to lead to creating solutions that meet our problems and realize our opportunities. Let me close on this note that was brought to me in an earlier session this morning. The moderator was asking me, how should I introduce you to the audience? She knew my name, she knew my job, and I asked her, do you want to know whether I'm single or married? Do you want to know whether I have one wife or many? What do you want to know about me? She said, I want to understand what makes you, makes you wake up in the morning and energizes you for the day. I said, the source of my motivation is the opportunity to put money into young people's pockets. I think the measure of success of 5G will be how can we ride on this new platform to create wealth, prosperity, and to create revenues and money, and a big part of which will of course end up with those who will have invested, but a big part also should flow through the pockets of our young people. How is this going to be a bedrock of innovation so that the benefits of 5G trickle down to the common African citizen? And that is a question I leave to all of you with my sincere gratitude and thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John Philbert, and I will encourage, as many of us that would want to interact with him afterwards, please do so. So I'm going to call our panel to come up and, to dig a bit deeper into the topic that we're discussing in this session, which is 5G for the enterprise sector. So I'm going to call to this stage Caroline Kamaita. She is the Vice President, Africa Enterprise and Cloud for SES. I will also want to call to the stage Axel Hansman, who is the Director for IoT, Industrial IoT at Rood and Schwartz. And of course, Amer Abdelazim, who is Expert Partner at Decticon and Managing Partner at Decticon Cairo. All right. So welcome, Caroline. Welcome, Axel. Welcome, Amir. We've had the conversations since we started this session. We've had, on the consumer side, but for this panel, just want us to focus a bit more on the enterprise opportunities. But before we do that, I'm going to, ask each of you to, take a bit of time to introduce yourself to the audience and also to talk about what your company is doing in this space. So if we start with you, Caroline.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Keniche. So my name is Caroline Kamaida. I work for SES or with SES. And SES is a satellite solution provider. And by virtue of satellite, we're able to provide connectivity everywhere, on land, in the sea, and in the air. So if you use your in-flight Wi-Fi connectivity, it's a satellite operator that's providing that. If you're on a cruise ship and you get high throughput connectivity, that's satellite providing that as well. And for fixed operations as well, so MNOs, telcos, we provide that level of connectivity. When we get into the conversation around 5G, and especially for 5G SA, so the private networks, we, as a satellite operator, see that there's a lot of opportunity there. We have some examples, which I'll talk about as we move ahead, around utilization for enterprises, specifically for mining, for fisheries, for remote locations that are typically off the grid or relatively off the grid, but we're able to still provide some 5G SA that is able to provide high throughput, low latency, and quality connectivity. We're talking about quality of experience, quality of service. We've done a lot of tests that I'll talk about as we go on with the panel on exactly what SES has continued to do in that space. But the underlying statement is we believe that satellite has a significant role to play when it comes to 5G. We've seen it very clearly. There's a lot of excitement over the last 2 years around satellite connectivity. The satellite we knew 10 years ago is not the satellite we're talking about today. The innovation and the disruption in that space, in the satellite market, has now birthed new solutions, has brought new conversations around the table on how we contribute as the connectivity moves forward. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Caroline. Axel?
Yeah, thank you for inviting us here today. My name is Axel Hansmann. I have degrees in engineering from the University of Cape Town and from Munich, and I've been working in the telco space for more than 20 years. Now, last year I joined Rohde & Schwarz. I trust many of you will know the company for our test and measurement equipment, and I invite you to come see our booth in the exhibition hall. We have a wide range of test and measurement solutions for basically all frequency ranges and technologies, not only cellular, but also satellite. And when it comes to 5G, we've obviously extended our spectrum monitoring capability, but also our mobile network testing capability to cover 5G. We see a lot of opportunity for further deployment of 5G, and we're very happy to hear about the rollouts of networks across Africa. And when it comes to enterprise, we see an opportunity also in private networks. And this is where we've extended our capabilities, not only to 5G for public networks, but also to look at the specific requirements of private networks, where the uplink, for example, the uplink broadband bandwidth is more important, where things around reliability and also especially on latency are very important. And this is where our network testing equipment has been extended to cover the use cases there as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Axel. Amir?
Hi, thank you very much. So the mic will help me to look this way.
Okay.
So I will look at my colleagues here. So I'm Amir Abdelazim. I am an expert partner in Datacon International. Before joining Datacon, I was senior executive as a CTIO in few organizations, mainly Rwanda. I was a CTIO of one of the operators here 5 years ago. Worked in more than 30 markets in Africa, and come with a big passion to actually telecommunication in Africa on the same time. Datacon is actually the management consulting arm of Deutsche Telekom. We are existing in more than 17 countries, and we have served consulting projects mainly in the technology management area in almost all over the globe. For 5G specifically, we are almost helping all the stakeholders of the industry, starting from actually regulators, where we help for licensing and valuations of spectrums and understanding what will be the requirements of quality of service to every area. We also help governments to actually catalyze the industry and help with the different use cases that will actually incentivize operators to start using the 5G. And then lastly, but not actually least, is the operators and the suppliers of the industry, infrastructure suppliers as well. There's a huge challenge in the area, and infrastructure suppliers are in a challenge with energies and space on towers. Operators are in challenge of how to create the right product to go into the market, and the end of the time as well, the cost is huge, and that's where actually Datacon steps in and help to set up the operating model behind that, or the business case, or actually use cases that will catalyze. When it comes to enterprises specifically, we are also supporting massively on actually the innovation ecosystem behind driving the enterprise in the industry, leveraging, of course, the Deutsche Telekom assets, T-Labs in Berlin, or different innovation centers that we have across the continents of Europe and APAC as well. So enterprise is actually the right keyword when it comes to all the business cases. Actually, even if you take a step back on the previous session on B2C, or how the consumer support, the most appealing success story is a B2B2C in reality. So where our colleagues from Airtel talked about it. So enterprise is the talking for that, and I'm sure we can talk more about it during the session. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amer. So I want, the next few minutes we spend together, I want this to be really thought-provoking for the audience, the people in the room listening to us. So please don't hold anything back. You have my permission, to be as direct as you want to be in your responses. But let's come back to you, Caroline. So, yeah, satellite companies, lots of people, have heard a lot about what satellite companies are doing. But if we think about the 5G ecosystem specifically, if you can, go into a bit more detail about the role of satellite, in developing the 5G ecosystem.
All right. Thank you. I hope I'm audible. Okay, great. So I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier in terms of the fact that satellite is everywhere. So you'll be able to provide connectivity even in hard-to-reach areas. All the previous panels this afternoon, everybody has talked about the element of cost, which we are not able to contribute meaningfully into that in terms of the end user access to handsets that are 5G capable. But they've talked about also when they start up the 5G utilization, that the demand goes up exponentially. So we have looked at this from our own perspective, and we believe that for satellites to have a meaningful role to play within the 5G ecosystem, there are a couple of things that we need to bring to the table. One is high throughput, low latency, affordability, and scalability, because you start a 5G network, for example, at 150 megabits per second, and that tends to scale very fast. The question that we've had when we had our roundtables with our CTOs from different operators is, how do we ensure that we're giving you a winning strategy for you to go 5G, even in hard-to-reach locations, or in areas where the total cost of ownership, the TCO, doesn't make sense to go with just your terrestrial fiber. So having laid out all those challenges and the requirements, as we understand them from our customers, our CTOs, our MNOs, the telcos, what we've come up with as SES is to build a product that is able to address all those points. Now, we know about the geostationary satellites that have been there since time immemorial. We've seen what has happened in the recent years. So within SES, what we've done is we've deployed the O3B solution. So O3B launched about 10 years back, medium Earth orbit, which means you're getting higher throughput, you're getting lower latency, and affordability is addressed, because the lower the orbit, the more affordable it is to launch. And then we have, when I look at the industry as a whole, we now have the conversations around the LEO operators, that are launching satellites that are much cheaper. So the latency is going much lower, affordability is also being addressed, and the throughput element is being addressed. We find that because, again, informed by the conversations by most likely a lot of the people around the room, because we have those consultative conversations, and following a lot of tests that we've done. So we've documented tests, we do tests with Microsoft within now the ecosystem, tests with NTT, different operators, to continue asking ourselves, is satellite really relevant? Are we building the right type of solutions? And again, coming back from all those things that we've done, all the conversations we've had, we found that the product that we built, and we are launching, the last launch of the latest constellation is going to be in Q4 of this year, so we're still within the launch window. But beginning of next year, we'll have that solution available. We're building something that will be able to address all the points. So going back to the original question on the ecosystem, so multiple players are required. It's not just the satellite operator. We need to work in partnership with the mobile network operators, the telcos, the different integrators that we have, for us to be able to really develop and deploy a 5G capable satellite solution. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for that, Caroline. So let's come to you, Axel, and I want to, touch on awareness. For consumers, we all know what it means to get a connectivity for voice and for data. But when you think about enterprises, especially in Africa, do they understand the new capabilities that 5G brings? And not just 5G, I want to tie IoT to it, because that's part of what you do as well. Do they understand the new capabilities? Are they aware of what is out there? If the answer is no, what should the industry do? People in the room, what should we all do to make sure that other verticals who are not amongst us, we're not just talking to ourselves here, those in banking, those in healthcare, and so on. How do we bring this message to them, so that the benefits of 5G can begin to spread across the entire, economic sectors that we have out there?
Yeah, so I think not only in Africa, but I think around the world, there's a big challenge in getting the message across of the potential use of cellular in a wide range of applications that go beyond just the pure consumer approach. So I think also in Africa, actually, IoT technology has been in use for quite a while. For example, in the smart metering space, or just metering space in general, being able to get electricity payment, but also consumption usage data out of the electric grid. That's been possible for quite a few years now. I think with advances in technology, there is more opportunity when it comes to using battery-operated metering devices. But that's just the first step. There's so much more potential in IoT technology to optimize further processes, and I think particularly in Africa there's a great opportunity where there's a lack of wired infrastructure to leverage the potential of cellular technology, also satellite-based technology, into a wide range of use cases that go into many different industry verticals. So we've heard the mention of healthcare. There's a great opportunity in agriculture. There are opportunities in harbors, ports, and so on to optimize processes, collect data. Very big opportunity also in manufacturing to really digitize those processes. And that increasingly, and also particularly in manufacturing, I think is where 5G will play a role. Not only in the sense of enabling broadband connectivity, where you would be using Wi-Fi routers to replace some of the lack of landline broadband connectivity, but also going into specific use cases around ultra-reliable low-latency communication, connecting machines and the manufacturing processes themselves. And as Rodan Schwarz, this is where we can come in. Traditionally on let's say the public networks, we're very active. We're collaborating with the regulators on spectrum monitoring and mobile network testing to see the compliance and the quality of service and quality of experience these networks when it comes to the public service. When it comes to private networks, spectrum monitoring is less important, but what's really, really important is understanding the performance of these private networks in terms of quality, latency, performance, so that the parameters are really well tuned to deliver on the expectations of customers when they use those private networks in enterprise solutions.
Okay, yeah, no, thanks for that. And you've started touching on the sectors where we see the opportunities. But I want you to dig a bit deeper into that, because when we talk about 5G for enterprises, yes, we can mention pretty much any sector that comes to mind. But I want you to narrow this down maybe to the top 3 sectors. And this is in the Africa context. Okay, what 3 sectors would you say in Africa, present the biggest opportunity for 5G, to help drive growth within those sectors?
It's actually very important to do that, because the point is, as we heard from most of the speakers before, there's a big challenge in the implementation. And governments, policymakers, owners of actually what needs to be done, it's important to come from top down with a clear use case, with a narrowed sector, because that informs later the strategy of the operator on his rollout. And informs like, do I go with dynamic spectrum sharing? Do I go with concurrent mode? Do I go with 5G advanced and integrate with satellite? What do I do? And that informs my investment type, and then again informs my business case and informs my ROI. So if I take a step back again and talk about the African context, I would say, what is the richest part in Africa? Natural resources. Starting from natural resources, we would like to actually start productifying that. So moving from a natural resource and actually starting to put it as an industrial product that requires one sector. So I would definitely focus on every country's national resources and see what is the cluster that can drive that. And that will create a potential for a 5G campus or a private network that would be helping that. So getting down there, I would say definitely mining. That's a clear, blunt use case. Then next is agriculture. Where? How do we do that? We've seen earlier the use case in China about actually smart agriculture. How can we do that? And then the third one, I would still call it actually an enterprise, which is getting affordable connectivity to homes. Because so the FWA concept needs to become enterprise. So it has to go from being B2C, it has to move to B2B2C. So getting a residential complex, get the right connectivity and informing the users about the right product, about the right consumption, and use the right last mile connectivity. Devices are huge when it comes to B2C. No one will subsidize that. Then the only solution is that have a development complex, for example, and in that complex you have a private network and that you change the last mile to an affordable CPE. So if I would focus, it's definitely going to be mining, industry, agriculture industry, and then the B2B2C section in the FWA industry, because it is really important and operators cannot do it alone actually.
Yeah, and building on that, what would you say are the key drivers, when you compare Africa to other regions, Europe, America, what are the key drivers for those particular sectors? You've highlighted, that they are, yes, based on the natural resources, but are there specific drivers that actually make those sectors quite attractive?
Thank you again, actually. So I would actually say if we talk about Europe, moving into the 5G campus or private network use cases are mostly driven by automation, AI, cloud, and edge behind all of that, and would like to go into automation. But the main driver for Europe in that is actually lack of resources, human capital resources. So automation is driving more efficiency there, and also like energy that needs to be a driver. If I turn my head to Africa and I would say, okay, what will be the drivers in here? Definitely lack of skills that needs to be energized by creating several use cases that when I have a 5G campus for an oil and gas provider, he can have his resources sitting wherever it is in the world, connecting to his facility in here, and he's able to actually make sure that this digital twin or that private network there is run with the with the right also reliability and SLA. I would not discount here the gates out of Africa, because we can talk a lot about actually having the 5G use case in driving the mining or driving the agriculture, but if I want to have a remote automation in here, our infrastructure, internet infrastructure, getting out of Africa, but I think that's for a different panel. So, but if we focus on that, I will think the main driver will be skills, and the second driver will be energy. Actually supporting base stations that support 5G to the consumer, assuming you achieve 25% only of actually population coverage, it triples or multiplies by 5 your energy consumption. But actually having a confined, laser-pointed actually energy to the area where the 5G consumption is going to be needed in a network on a campus, that's also a big driver that actually should be focused here. So what is the most energy-efficient solution that actually compensates the lack of skill in that area? So those will be the two drivers I would focus on.
Thanks for that. And you've used the P word again, private networks. And I think it's going to be an interesting space going forward, for Africa. And I'm going to come to you, Ruud and Schwartz, Axel. What would you say? How can you ensure a higher level of quality and performance of private networks, and how should we be looking at this opportunity in Africa? We heard Orange, mention it earlier, and it's come up over and over again. So if you can speak to this, from your perspective.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to private networks, again, it's very much, as in public, it's about networks, it's about the experience of the end user and using that network. And in private networks, there are different KPIs that become really important. This is about the 4059 availability of the network. It's about the latency in the network. It's about the capacity and overall quality of the network. And here it's very important to understand all these parameters in your network and take corrective action before you start to have problems. And that's why permanent monitoring of such private networks or campus networks is really important, because any issues that arise could have severe impact on your production processes, on your company processes that can, at the end of the day, also have revenue impacts. So being in a position to continuously monitor the quality of the service and the performance of the network is really vital to ensure that the customer will benefit from his expectation of a private network and what it can deliver to his company.
Thank you so much. We're out of time, but I'm going to leave Caroline, to have the last word. So I guess everyone in the room, in the last couple of years, you've heard a lot about satellites, springing up everywhere, coming into the connectivity space. It's quite an interesting and exciting time for the industry. There are lots of questions, how is this going to materialize? Where is this heading to? And I want to give you, the opportunity to talk about, the role of satellites, especially, yes, we're talking about 5G, but we shouldn't forget those, who are not yet, connected even to the most basic services. So what's the role, of SES and the satellite industry, as a whole in connecting, the unconnected, and how are you approaching this in Africa?
All right, thanks for the question. So I think we've seen all the statistics, especially from GSMA, in terms of internet penetration or mobile broadband coverage and usage. And as a continent, we're still not where a lot of us would like to be, which is at least get everybody having some level of connectivity. And the challenges we know, I'm not going to go through them because they're in the report, but the challenges remain there. One of the challenges that we confidently address from the satellite point of view is coverage. We're able to go where terrestrial fiber infrastructure is challenged to go. Not that it's not capable, but it's challenged, whether it's the rough terrain or it's the cross-border connectivity that is a bit challenging. You have the landlocked countries and the like. So within SES, what we've done very intentionally, and I talked very briefly about this O3B solution. So O3B, which is a medium earth orbit solution that we provide, the name actually talks about the other 3 billion, that's O3B, people in the continent that are unconnected. And we are very intentional about that. And the only way we get to do it, especially in Africa, is through partnerships. So we have partnerships, solid partnerships with the mobile network operators, working within the larger connectivity ecosystem, talking about the regulator, talking about the civil society in terms of education, digital literacy improvement, talking about the telcos, the ISPs, anyone and everybody who's a stakeholder when it comes to connectivity. Those are the people that we work with very closely. But satellite will always be very unique in the sense that looking at predominantly its deployability, looking at the low cost, if you want to deploy a satellite site in the middle of nowhere in Kenya or in Rwanda, for example, it's much cheaper to go satellite because you don't have to worry about the terrestrial rollout. And we've seen some very interesting use cases where we work closely with mobile network operators and they want to extend the fiber beyond the capital city, or they want to extend the fiber beyond the last landing point, and they're looking for an option that is economically viable, or they want to test and see if this makes sense or doesn't make sense. Satellite becomes very interesting in those cases. But having said that, it doesn't stop there. We still have a lot of satellite utilization in capital cities. So think about cities like in N'Djamena, in Niamey, in Niger. Still a lot of satellite utilization because they're landlocked countries. You have a single fiber environment or a two fiber environment, and it's, the stability comes into question. So within SES, we recognize those gaps in the market. We're very intentional about how we address those gaps in the market, looking at the products that we have continued to build to address the gaps there.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Caroline. And with that, we've come to the end of this panel. Can we put our hands together for our panelists as we go back to the seats? Thank you so much. And allow me to say, I think we've left the best for last because you're going to thoroughly enjoy the very next session. If there are people outside who need to come in, now is a very best time for that, for them to do that. And that is because we're going to be talking about 5G innovation. For those of us who were here in the first session, we heard the speakers talk about use cases, lack of use cases being one of the biggest challenges, that we face when it comes to 5G adoption in Africa. But we have people who are doing a lot of work to change this situation, and we'll be hearing directly from them. So it is my honor and my pleasure to welcome our first keynote speaker for this third session, Elizabeth, and she's going to have a very interesting session with us on that. Elizabeth, let's put our hands together as she comes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Good evening. It's been a long day, I know. This is a tough shift. Thank you, Kenichi. And of course, what he did was to overpromise, because I think he feared that everybody was going to run for the door. So thank you so much for staying. I hope the conversation we're going to have with you will have been worth your while. But if you feel a bit tired, feel free to stretch. As I speak, I will not take offense. So my name is Elizabeth Miguala. I work for Qualcomm as the Vice President for Government Affairs. And I'm not going to talk technology today. I want to talk to you about an initiative that was actually born out of the first Mobile World Congress Africa last year, and this is called Qualcomm Africa Innovation Platform. And, you know, a lot of this comes from conversations that we had with many people when we came here last year, because we heard a lot of what we've heard today. But we're of the view that this form factor, this one, 5G was not just built for this form factor. In fact, we believe that if the promise of 5G is to be realized, then it should permeate every aspect of lives in Africa. It should go across all sectors of the economies. Okay, so we began to think about how this would be achieved, because today we've heard about infrastructure, we've heard about the services. There's been a common theme: use cases, utilization. So we came to the conclusion that if anybody is going to build use cases to be used in Africa, it would have to be our people in Africa. So we started off, we were in the 5G summit. We also had a bit of talk in the innovation session. And so we announced this Qualcomm Africa Innovation Platform. And basically the platform has 4 pillars. One was the Qualcomm Make in Africa Startup Mentorship Program. And that's the one we have on the left there. And that basically says, who is going to build the agricultural use case that's used in a country? Who is going to build the health use case? The next pillar is the Qualcomm University Relations Program. This program bolsters research and educational capabilities in African universities, research labs, and students by providing them with learning platforms and associated training, as well as developer kits. So the idea we had was to grow the pipeline of innovation, starting from students right up to industries. The third is the Qualcomm Wireless Academy, again, just an education and training arm that expanded our 5G university training programs to students at select African universities. And so what we did was that we sent out an invitation to innovators, to investors, to anybody who would be interested in developing end-to-end systems, connectivity systems to deal with real-life issues in Africa. And we had over 550 applicants from 34 countries. We shortlisted them to 10. We have 10 startups that we decided to engage. Now, what I want to talk to you about, ladies and gentlemen, is that indeed we found young startup companies that were already engaged in aspects of the economy. And the conversation we had with them was, what would connectivity do to improve what they were doing, and what would 5G bring in to improve what they were doing? If you look at that map, you'll see that the companies that we have engaged, 3 of them from Kenya, involved in agriculture, involved in medical systems. In Uganda, we have a last mile delivery through e-bikes. and we have a computer on USB dongle, you may be asking yourself, where does 5G use case come here? But I think you really need to understand that this is creating the innovators that will create the use cases, connectivity notwithstanding. What does it take for one to envision and devise and design an intervention that will be used in the African countries? In Rwanda, we have one, electricity storage as a service. On the west of Africa, we have, in Nigeria, 3 of the startups, one looking at vehicle diagnostics and inspection. Keep in mind where connectivity comes in. Precision agriculture, solar e-lanterns for recycled batteries, and then in Ghana we have solar taxi. So ladies and gentlemen, we have worked with these, we may call them startups, but they are companies that are in the economy. Over 7 months mentorship program with many elements that have been provided, having bi-weekly meetings with our technologists in our labs, in our company, on issues such as technology, business, marketing, and IP, patenting and protecting their IP, master classes to sharpen their technology training on topics such as 5G, AI, machine learning, extended reality, etc. Now, we hope, the reason we are speaking to you here is because we have operators here, we have government here, we have opinion leaders, we have decision makers. We hope that you believe with us that we can take advantage of Africa's youth dividend. And when I call up the 2 companies, you'll understand what I mean when I talk about the youth dividend. This is a continent that has a large population of young people. They are educated, they are users of technology, they are the innovators, and they will be the consumers of those technologies. So our message is very simple. Nobody is going to develop the use cases for the African countries that will fill up the 5G networks that are being deployed today. The networks will not just be for improving the smartphone usage. Indeed, they should be used within the entire economic system, whether it's health, whether it's education, whether it's transportation, whether it's just doing life. The creators of those solutions will have to come from us. I think the world has become such a place that every country is grappling with the same discussion we're having today. And we cannot imagine that there is somebody sitting in another country, in another continent, who is losing sleep about creating use cases for our countries. First of all, they do not know what these use cases are, but there's plenty to do to create use cases in their own countries. So just a little bit about the university collaboration. And again, this is just to show that it's not, in order for us to have the pipeline of innovators, we really need to start at the universities, okay? So one of the pillars of this innovation program is collaborating with African universities in enhancing the engineering curriculum and providing training on technologies such as extended reality, robotics, etc., using platforms that we have and developer kits. We've already started a program in the University of Bio in Cameroon. We are in discussion with other universities in Africa because we believe that when the students touch and feel the technology, they will be able to create those solutions when they go into the market. The Wireless Academy, the information is there. It's a question of just distributing and spreading training material courses so that the students and learners have the latest information about the technologies. So So I think in the interest of time, this is our Wireless Reach initiative. Again, it's still developing the technological skills of the young population. We are collaborating with the ITU Development Bureau for early foundational digital skills of the youth, building this talent from the very beginning. And so today I thought the best thing would be to call onto the platform here for you to hear. We have 10 companies we are working with. We are fortunate today that 2 of them have been able to join us here today. I don't know what they're going to tell you, and I have not asked them what they're going to tell you, but I'm going to invite them up here to just tell you a little bit about what they're doing, who they are, what their innovations entail, and how connectivity does or does not improve their companies, and maybe share with you some of the pain points that they have already felt on this journey of innovation. So with that, I'm going to call the 2 gentlemen to join me up here. And like I told you, it's about the youth dividend. You can see them. I also just met them now, so I'm going to ask them the names. So Jeffrey and Leandra, in front of you are very important people. Here are government leaders, here are heads of operators, here are prospective customers, prospective partners. So this is your stage. You have been on a journey. Can you tell us who you are and what your companies, I hate to call you startups because that's not what you are. Tell me what your companies are doing, and then we can start the conversation. They may ask you questions, but over to you.
So my name is Geoffrey Mutabazi. I'm the founder of Kara. What we're building is smart and connected electric bicycles, and we've managed to develop electric bicycles in a way that almost no one has. One, we base our bicycles off the already existing bicycles in the market, so your typical Black Mamba type bicycle. Secondly, we reduce the component count for these bicycles. So if you look at electric cars, an electric car has 200 parts and 20 of those are moving. A normal ICE motor car has about 1,700 parts and 900 of those are moving. So by reducing the number of parts we have, it reduces the amount of maintenance you'd have to do. And in this part of the world, that's a very big selling point for a lot of technologies that are going to market. Thirdly, we also develop a lot of IoT systems. So by replacing the parts, instead of having a mechanical pedal assist sensor, we have a Bluetooth pedal assist sensor, which connects to a Bluetooth controller, and we also have a GPS tracker that basically does all the tracking to be able to finance this product. Now, just to give you a full use case, what we build these bicycles for is for last mile transportation in urban areas and rural areas. And what you're seeing here is not a bottle of water, it's actually how our battery is shaped. And this is the best anti-theft system you can develop. So if they don't know it, they can't steal it. So we put our GPS tracker in here. And yeah, that's basically what Kara is building. We're based in Uganda, currently working with 2 of the largest e-commerce platforms, that's Jumia and Glovo, in electrifying their fleets, covered over 50,000 kilometers. To give you an example, we're somewhere along the equator, so we've gone around the equator, or bicycles have gone around the equator, plus some bonus distance. So in a nutshell, that's what Kara is building. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Leandro.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leandro Bergo. I'm co-founder and CEO of SLS Energy. And what SLS is doing is building battery optimization for batteries retired from electric vehicles, consumer electronics, and solar home systems. So we are taking these batteries that get retired not because they are dead, just because they're not fit for their first applications, and we are repurposing them into second life batteries that we provide for power backup. And our current market targets are telecom towers and mini grids. So we are very proud to say that you're not only a potential use case for 5G, but you're also an enabler of the rollout of 5G, because one of the challenges that I mentioned in the previous panel is the energy, and this could be both in terms of accessibility, reliability, and also sustainability. So we're able to provide power backup solutions to telecom towers by reusing these batteries from e-mobility and other stationary applications. And we are doing this in a novel business model. We are providing these batteries as a service. This means that we are providing this battery to enable like a cash flow flexibility for the telecom tower operators, where they can have reliable and sustainable power backup options without having to drain their bank by acquiring like huge stations of power banks. And our other application being mini grids, we are able to provide affordable energy storage solutions to kind of accelerate the electrification of rural areas where these people most likely have low income levels, and they cannot afford traditional power backup and solar panel provided on the market. So we are very lucky to be like the enabler of a circular ecosystem for both telecommunication and also energy access on the African continent, starting in Rwanda.
Okay. So now I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. So what has that to do with technology? I mean, with what we are talking about here, you know, is there anything that is relevant to what we are discussing here now and in the future? Do you see connectivity, 4G or 5 or otherwise, in your journey or innovation?
Yeah, definitely. And speaking about this, I could also link it to one of the key challenges we are solving, which also brings in connectivity. And this is that for being able to use these batteries for second life application, traceability of the batteries from mining until the first application, until the retirement of the first application, is very crucial to actually understand like what's the history of these batteries and how can we best optimize them for the second life application, both in terms of performance, safety, and lifetime. So we are going around this challenge by building embedded systems and digital connectivity, a combination of those technologies to actually have visibility in battery performance during both the first and second life applications. So this is basically us trying to link battery test data and battery performance data to an ID that's assigned to every battery cell. And this is identified by assigning a QR code and alphanumeric code to each battery cell. And with this, you can actually have like a database of what batteries are coming into our ecosystem and what they're actually doing throughout their life cycle. And we are hoping to extend this platform to other battery manufacturers and battery providers so that we can have like a whole-scale visibility of what we have in terms of energy storage and how we can best optimize them, considering performance, lifetime, and safety at the same time. So these digital tools are actually enabling us having this visibility and these optimization options in the energy storage market.
Mm-hmm. And Jeffrey, you don't need connectivity on the bike, do you?
So in order to finance this bicycle, so take, for example, our typical rider is about 20 years old on average. They don't have a credit score. They don't have a lot of records. So we need to put GPS trackers on the bicycles to basically be able to finance them and have that visibility of exactly what the riders are doing and exactly where they are in the field. By using connectivity and particularly, basic SIM cards in GPS tracker that's embedded into the battery, we are then able to reduce the risk of lending to these riders by our asset financing partners. And of course, the biggest challenge with this is you need connectivity, but you also need redundancy, right? So by using both the GPS GPS system and also using Bluetooth and a mobile app, we're able to not only rely on the faster 5G networks or 4G networks that are available everywhere, but also rely on 2G and Bluetooth to collect data. So we have onboard systems to collect information that's stored on the bike itself. In a case where there's no connectivity, but in a case where there's connectivity, we're working with support from Qualcomm to be able to scale all the way up to utilizing even 5G technologies to basically scoop up that data when the connectivity is available. So because a bicycle could be anywhere, and you don't want to lose connectivity to it because you're only optimizing for 5G. So I think it's really about going across the board, not only focusing on one technology.
So I see 0. Does it mean my time is up? Can it? Is it finished? Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I hope the message I really wanted to convey to you is firstly that we will need to build the systems to do life. Okay, so it doesn't have, it's about 5G making life better. The first thing. The second thing is that this is the platform that will enable us to really take advantage of what I call the youth dividend. There are so many of them, intelligent and thinking and working. We need to enable them to put dollars in their pockets while they actually solve problems. And these are just 2. We have 8 others. I hope I've convinced you that innovation just doesn't happen for 5G, but we need innovation, period, so that they will innovate for 5G use cases. So with that, please give the youth a hand of applause. Please speak to them, encourage them. There's a lot in store for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth and Leandre and Geoffrey. Really interesting what you're doing. And let me just encourage, those of us in the room, once we're done, they're still going to be here, right? You're not running away. So please, reach out to them, have a conversation with them, and see how you can partner with them, in your markets. And at this time, I'm going to, bring up to the stage next speaker, who will come up right now. And it is from Orange Labs. Okay, so for those of us who have been paying attention to what Orange has been doing in the past few years, they've been really at the forefront of driving tech innovation more generally, but also 5G in particular. So we're going to have with us here Afef, who will come up. She's a manager at Orange Lab in Tunisia, and she will, share some insights on some of the fantastic solutions that they have been developing. I'm sure it is something that we'll all want to listen to. Afef.
Hi everyone. Actually, I know it's very difficult to hear me, the last one, to pass, but I'm sick and I need really your energy to do this presentation, please. So be with us. So I'm super happy to be here, and I thank really the organizers of this event, and especially Jesima and Kenichi for this summit. And then I'm so happy also to share with you our experience with Orange Tunisia, and especially on the 5G lab. So it's a new space that we are working on it, and the most important thing for us and the objective is to show the potential of 5G, to simulate and create with stakeholders all what we can do with 5G use cases, and then to anticipate and the product at service development. So it's a space available to all. We work not alone, we work especially with startups, and I think you see that all the people, all enterprises, they understand that we have to work together to have results. So the idea is to give a showroom that we can show the potential of the 5G, and we do it in several sectors. And then we have experts that are available with startups to brainstorm and to do use cases together. So we build together things, and then we test the potential of 5G 5G for sure. We have startups that are very advanced in their solutions that are already selling using the 5G. Even in Tunisia, the 5G is not officially available. And then we also give them devices with equipment because it's very expensive for them to use it. So we are here with our partners to help and to serve them. So this is photos from the 5G lab in Tunis, and it's an exclusive photos because officially it will be inaugurated next month. So you are the first to see this 5G lab of Tunis. And then, as you can see, we have enterprises rooms where the enterprises can invite their clients and talk about 5G and demonstrate their solutions. We also have exploration room where startups can show the use cases. Then we have a working place and immersive room, which is very important for virtual reality and augmented reality. And for sure, as I said before, we don't work alone. We have partners, we have universities with us, startups, local authorities, technical partners, academics, the group Orange, and all the stuff that you are looking and seeing in the screen. And now I will talk about the use cases that we already deployed in Tunisia. We started in 2021, which is very early for Tunisia. The market is not ready yet, but we have startups that already use 5G. So we started with a very innovative startup, which is Innova Robotics. It is a manufacturing robot. So we started with the robot P-Guard, and the objective is to how to say it, to work on the manufacturing sites and to survey, and we can stream instantaneously what it's happened in the sites. And the second one, it was with HoloLenses, and the idea is to show that we can use this to help experts to man and to have machines and to be helped cross distance, even if there is experts in other countries, etc. So we can do it with HoloLens and 5G connection. We can cable and we can man the machines with 5G. And the last one, which is a robot, a simple robot, to help do some automated tasks in the industry. Sorry, I'm really tired, but I'm trying. So the second use case was for the e-culture, and the idea with a Tunisian startups, which is a woman, and we are so happy to do this with her. We worked on the augmented reality and virtual reality outdoor, which is very, very rare in Africa and in Europe, because it depends on the weather. We cannot establish the 5G points, etc. So we do it in 2 archaeological sites in Punic Port and Douga in Tunisia. And voila, you can see the photos. It's a real photos, actually, of our 2 events. And it was done in November 2021 also. And also we do use cases for gaming. I think if there is gamers here in the room, hi. So you know the importance of 5G to do multiple players, and we can broadcast, and then you can use the 5G to have a high quality. And also we do it for public because we want to really all the citizens see the interest of the 5G. So we do it in Korouen, which is a center place in Tunis. It's not in the capital, actually. And that's it, I think. Very soon we have other use cases, so try to follow us on our website and Facebook pages. Thank you. I think I am done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're just going to wrap up with a brief discussion, with Afef and Elizabeth. If you can join us back on stage, we'll have a brief discussion, with them to understand why it's important to have local innovators lead the development, of 5G use cases in Africa. So let's put our hands together as we welcome Elizabeth back on stage. So thank you so much, both of you, for the discussion, for the presentations that you made. I think they've been really insightful, and I think the audience will agree with me that it's been worth your time waiting for this session, hasn't it? So thank you very much, for the discussion. So let's start. If you can tell us a bit more about. We've talked about these innovations, but what impacts, what are the social and economic impacts that Making Africa, Qualcomm, what are those social and economic impacts that we expect to get out of these innovations? And of course, Orange Labs, what are the social and economic impacts that we expect to get out? So if we start with you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Kenichi. If it was earlier in the day, I would have almost thrown that question back to the audience. I mean, is there anybody in this audience who believes that innovations and solutions for Africa should be developed by anybody other than Africans? I think all of us believe so. But I think from Qualcomm perspective, for me, it's really the intersection of technological developments and the unique attributes of the African region that makes me believe that this partnering to innovate has to happen, because if truly we're moving into a world where everything is intelligently connected, okay, so then it means, we really must have collaborations and partnerships with all the stakeholders, that is governments, industry, entrepreneurs, and consumers, in order to transform. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we have our population below 30. Some people say 60%, I don't know. We have a huge population in Africa that is below 30. What are they going to do? You see what I mean? So that is huge. I mean, it's something that we haven't tapped into. That alone, to me, if we could convert the youth into innovators, and real innovators with solutions that make sense, that we can even export. So when you interpose those two situations, I think the answer is obvious. Apart from the fact that when you're talking about agriculture, in my rural village called Ahero, that agriculture doesn't look the same as agriculture in, say, Korea. So who is going to innovate the agricultural solution? It really needs to be locally based. So that's really one of the reasons why we took the steps. They're small steps, but we believe that that is the way to go.
Yeah, Afef, do you want to add to that? Why is it important, to have these innovations developed locally and driven by Africans?
Okay. So let me before say that on Orange we have for sure the 5G that we are launching soon, but before that we have other projects that we are working on it, which is the Orange Digital Centers. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of you knows what we are doing, which is in coding school for free. We help students. And that's why I'm very okay with what you are saying. We have to start from students and give them the opportunity and form and skill them to do things with technology. So we are here to help them for free and for soft skills and technical skills on both. And then we have the Solidarity Fab Labs, where they can prototype their ideas, their startups, etc. And the third the third thing is the Orange Fab, which is the corporate accelerator of Orange. And we have more than 21 for Orange Fab worldwide, which is very huge. And we are all connected. We have networks. We work all together to promote innovation and to help students, youth, to do things with technology. So I cannot say technology is very important. We have to start it from scratch with students to have this culture in us. And I think today we cannot don't use digital technologies. So it's very important. And then if we do it locally, it's very helpful because locally we know the problems of the country, we know Africa more than else persons, we live here, so it's very normal to fit with the real needs of people. So that's why I encourage, and then we can also create jobs with that. So it's very, very important to do it locally before that export it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So Elizabeth, let's come to the challenges. We've talked a lot about how fantastic it is, to have these innovations developed locally. They need, for that to happen. But it's not all smooth sailing. There are issues, there are challenges that need to be addressed. There are some people in the room who may have the power to either address those challenges or influence those who can address, those challenges. So can you maybe, touch on one or two of those challenges and speak directly to people in the room who can influence, those who can address those challenges with key action points, on what they need to do to take care of those issues?
Yeah, Kanishi, that's a really a good question and a hard one. At the risk of doing a disservice, so my experience is really limited in the sense that I wish I could speak just based on the 10 partners that we've had. And maybe I can put it this way, that this program is drawing to an end. So we are in discussion with them. We are speaking with them. They are telling us the challenges they're meeting. Many of them are connectivity. Some of them are cross-border, like Kara. You have your bicycle across the border, and now your SIM card, you need. So their connectivity, their issues of, they don't want to innovate for the countries in which they sit. My understanding from them is they want to innovate for the entire continent. So the issues are, how do I do business? I'm from Uganda, I want to do business in Senegal, how do I do it? Okay, so we're picking some of that, but what I can promise you is that towards the end of this year, when the 10 of them graduate or have their finale, we will take a good account of the challenges that they have met and some of the solutions we think we can get, and we would like to use your good offices to disseminate those across so that when we come next year, we can actually talk about those problems and how they could be solved.
Yeah. And from your experience, Afef, are there any challenges, that local innovators face when it comes to either developing or scaling their solutions?
I think maybe two points. The infrastructure, it's very important to have the infrastructure to do innovation. If we don't have that, we cannot go on it. And then maybe believe on startups, invest on startups, because I believe it's a very important thing to have innovation and the open innovation. That's what we are doing in Orange. The open innovation, I innovate through startups, then I can gain time and money. So why not work together? It's a win-win partnerships. So.
Yeah, let's stay with you, Afef, and I know there are some innovators here in the room. Obviously, we still have the two that spoke, and I can see a few others who are also, in the audience. What's your message to them? You know what you've been doing at Orange Labs. You work with a lot of startups and innovators. If you wanted to pick on one or two or even three things, to say to startups and innovators, what would that message be?
I think they have to speak, to communicate with all of the people. They don't have to be alone, doing innovation alone, because maybe there is other peoples are doing the same thing. So it's much better to work together. For my message for them, try to work all together. That's it.
Yeah. So that's collaboration, basically, you know, and across the entire ecosystem, you know, talk to other startups, talk to mobile operators, talk to policymakers, and so on. And coming to policymakers, you know, I know this is your specialty, Elizabeth, so I'm going to send this question your way. We've heard the message to innovators. It's about collaboration. What will the message to policymakers be?
I think support them, take them seriously. I mean, so we have 5 countries. If I could sit across the policymakers in Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, Nigeria, and Ghana today, I would be saying pay attention to them, because who knows, this could be the next billion-dollar, you know, innovation. So, you know, give them time, pay attention. I would also speak to other stakeholders like operators. Connectivity is going to play a part in each innovation I've seen. So, you know, these are potential partners. It could be that the creation they make becomes your big thing as an operator. So I really, one of the reasons we are here, and there are just 10 of them, but we want to expose them as much as we can. If they knock your door, please open the door and listen to them.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I can see, you know, we still have a few minutes on the clock, and I'll take the risk of asking the audience. If I know I didn't, you know, tell you that before our conversation, you know, but that's the benefit, you know, of having made this a very, you know, straight to the point conversation. So I'll take the risk, you know, to see if there's anyone in the audience, you know, that has any question for our panelists. Okay, there's one question. We'll take that question.
Thank you very much. First of all, my name is Ronnie. I'm from the regulator in Sierra Leone. I'm here with the chairman of the board, Ambassador Joblel. And on his behalf and on behalf of the regulator, I would like to extend our profound thanks to the GSMA and our wonderful panelists for today's session. I'm glad we still have important personalities in the room, including Mr. Omo. And so it tells us how important 5G actually is, not just to the world, but in Africa, to Africa in particular. We've seen a lot of practical use cases being highlighted here, and emphasizing the importance of 5G. As we come to the end of day 2, I'd like to emphasize the DG of Smart Africa in his statement yesterday, when he said, when he described 5G as the most important and transformative and technological advances in our era. And so it means that we cannot hide away from it. We have to face 5G collectively as a continent. Now, for Sierra Leone in particular, we haven't launched 5G yet, but we would love to experiences from countries that have actually launched 5G. We would like to particularly know what pricing mechanism they've used on 5G, because it's a huge challenge for African countries. We currently use 4G Sierra Leone, but we're looking at launching 5G. We have actually extended a trial version to 2. Sorry. We've actually extended a trial version to 2 operators back home in Sierra Leone, in the mid-range band. And for us, it's still a learning experience for us. And the reason why the chairman, myself, and the team have made time to be with you throughout the end of the session is to be able to learn from experiences that from countries that have launched 5G and see how we can learn from them and obviously to be on Sierra Leone. I mean, we have a very small market with a population of just over 7 million, so it's a really small market. But, you know, like Elizabeth alluded, you know, we have to start from somewhere. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think that's more of a comment, but a very valuable comment, and I'll take that. You know, that is the mindset that our regulators have. You know, to see what is happening elsewhere, and you know, see how we can learn, you know, from each other as we go on this journey of developing 5G in Africa. And I think that's the spirit, you know, of the 5G summit. This is the second one that we're doing, and why are we doing this? You know, it's because we want to be able to create, you know, that narrative around how will 5G look like in Africa. We see the way it's evolving in other markets, but will it be exactly the same thing in Africa? Maybe not. But who is going to tell, you know, the story of 5G in Africa? Who is going to craft that story? It's us, really, you know, in this room who will do that, and that's precisely, you know, what we're doing. I'll give opportunity for one more comment or question, and then we'll wrap this up, if anybody wants to take that.
Nobody's tired.
Okay.
I've already been introduced as the chairman for the regulators. Mine was, I just want to congratulate both speakers for the presentation and for the youth of Africa who are trying to extend their knowledge. But there was something about the first room is innovation. In the pictures you showed, room number 1 was innovation. Am I right? You had, I think, 4 or 5 rooms.
Yes.
Yeah, why? My concern was, second room was exploitation. I don't know, it's just the wording. Maybe I'm wrong, but after you've innovated, then you're exploiting. So I hope you understand. I'm sure I'm getting my message. Maybe a better word could be used. I was very concerned when I saw that word, exploitation.
Okay. Yeah. No, thank you so much.
Showcase room, actually.
It's
okay.
It's a showcase
from
room.
French to English.
Yeah, I think it's the translation. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, good ladies, for what you are doing with especially young people in Africa. I think what the moderator and indeed all of you have spoken to is the need to create economies of scale. And that will come largely from, when we, not from a least common denominator, but compare with the very best of the world in terms of our policy and regulatory practices that then encourage use cases in Africa. At the African Telecommunications Union, of course, working with your governments and the private sector, the GSMA, we have had a 4-year study cycle with the ITU in terms of, allocation of various spectrum that can facilitate these use cases in Africa and for, assignment to industry. And we do believe that working with the rest of the world, because we have to coordinate our frequency allocations with the rest of the world, the forthcoming World Radio Conference in Dubai will offer a fantastic opportunity for Africa to take to that conference. We have developed our African Common Proposals together with industry. And we do believe that the sort of challenges that we see, especially in terms of what service is best suited to which resource in terms of spectrum needs, we will surmount it when we get to the conference. Of course, this is a field that is very dynamic. After every 4-year cycle, we get industry insights, and you know, at the next World Radio Conference, which I understand may be in this very place where we are, we will again consult with you in terms of the spectrum needs of various industries in Africa, and take to the world in terms of what you think that Africa needs in terms of these various use cases. Thank you very much. I just wanted to appreciate the two ladies for the wonderful work you're doing, especially with young people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to say a very big thank you to you, SG, always a big supporter of the 5G Summit. Last year, stayed all through to the end. And, this year, we really, really appreciate your support. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end, of this year's 5G Summit. Thank you so much, for your time. A lot for us to take away, from this year's summit. But look, let's see where we are today. We'll be back again in 12 months' time, and I'm sure, at that point, we will be discussing a lot more progress on so many fronts, on network deployment, on use case development, on 5G adoption, on device availability and affordability. I'm sure these are, some of the things that we'll be discussing in 12 months' time. Do not forget to download the report if you haven't done so already. Please do that, and with that, I will say we look forward to seeing you, in 12 months' time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.